Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of the AgriCapitalist Podcast, where we talk about hidden treasures in plain sight. As it is my tradition, I want to thank everyone that has been with us up to this very moment. I want to say a big thank you to you, and I pray that you keep excelling in your own area of endeavor, that you keep growing, you keep prospering. Today's episode will be talking about profitable crops for agripreneurs to consider. Yeah, this is very apt because, I talked in episode 11 where I talked about 7 common mistakes most farmers make. I talked about no planning and no strategy. Yeah, so this episode is more like a sequel to that episode 11. Today's episode will be talking about profitable crops for agripreneurs to consider, and that leads me to asking the question, do you know that there are crops in which you can plant within a period of 3 to 4 months and you can start raking in millions? Most of us think about agriculture, most of us think about farming. What comes to our mind is just, cassava, plantain, the ones that are very obvious to us. But there are crops that we don't even know exist, but they are making millions. They are making millions everywhere. People that are doing it are just doing it codedly. They don't want to announce it. But unfortunately for them, unfortunately for you, a guy like me is here to tell you that there are crops that you can plant, and within the shortest period of time, you can start raking in millions. There are crops that you can even plant that, as retirement plan, and then when it is time for you to retire, even before retirement, you are raking in millions. There are crops that are in high demand in the global market, and that is what we'll be talking about today. First thing first, I want to enlighten us on some strategies. When you go into agriculture, you have to have it in mind. Like I said in that episode 11, I said you as a person going into agriculture as a business, you are an agripreneur, and the business is an agribusiness. So as you are planning with the help of other people, forming your investment club, your strategy, you need to know the strategy in which you are going to go about your agribusiness. Are you going to implement the strategy of always going to monitor, or are you going to do it as a passive investment? What I mean passive, not entirely passive. What I mean is it requires minimum management. Yeah, so that being said, I would like to add that there are 3 types of crops when it comes to strategy. There is short-term crop. These are crops that last between the first month to between weeks to 3 months. Yeah, 3 to 4 months. They've already matured. They are short. Their gestation period is very short. Between 3 to 4 months, they've matured. There are crops. There are long-term crops. This one takes between 3 to as much as 15 years or thereabout. They've matured. Yeah. In this category, there are mostly tree crops. You see that mango tree, that orange tree at your backyard. They've been there for a long time. Go and ask your parents; they will tell you. Yeah, I've talked about short-term crops, which last between 3 to 4 months. Then I talked about long-term crops, which are between 3 years to as long as 15 years. To as long as 15 years. These are 2 common strategies. Most of our parents just go for either short-term crops or long-term crops. But now I'm adding another one that it is there, but most people we don't hear about it more often. They are called mid-term crops. What I'm trying to say is this. I don't know the right word for it, but I'm trying to classify it in between. There is short-term, long-term, and there is mid-term crops. Mid-term crops are crops that take between the 4 to 5 months to as long as 3 years. You see, it falls in between. That's the nice word, mid-term. Okay, mid-term. It's not like mid-term in school, mid-term crops. Short-term crops between 3 to 4 months, long-term crops between 3 to 15 years, and then mid-term crops between 3 months to 3 years. Yes, so for short-term crops, these are crops that at least within the shortest period of time you start making money. So if your strategy is to generate income immediately, you go for short-term crops. If your strategy is to generate income, with time, you go for long-term crops. And you know that long-term crops, they promise a lot of returns. So that's the benefit of long-term crops. Long-term crop, what they do is they require minimal management. You'll have to do your normal weeding, which is same as doing short-term crops. But then you don't have to go there all the time. They take care of themselves. Yeah. Unlike short-term crops, the advantage of short-term crops is this: they require your active, engagement, monitoring, because most of them are vegetables, right? So they require your active monitoring, but at the same time they promise returns immediate. So while you are waiting for long-term crops to produce, short-term crops are producing already instantly. Within a year, you might have even gone between 2 to 3 times. You've planted 2 to 3 times, and you've harvested 2 to 3 times. So you see, unlike long-term crops. Yeah. And then there is mid-term crops. Mid-term crops are crops that they don't produce immediate, but at the same time they will produce before long-term crops. You get. So let me give an example of each of the crops. Short-term crops, we have pepper, which is one we are familiar with. We have ugu, but here are a list of profitable short-term crops. Pepper. See, pepper is very important. Most people, we know that pepper is good, but most people don't know that pepper is very profitable. Pepper is very profitable. There is no part of Nigeria or the world that they don't use pepper. Pepper is very profitable. There is very little, like you can count the food that you can cook without adding pepper. You get, pepper is very, very important. So pepper is one of the most profitable short-term crops. Secondly, there is tomato. Tomato as well is very profitable. So if you are going into farming and you are thinking of a short-term crop, I've listed 2: pepper, tomato. There is sesame seed. This one is more like a new breed because it is not so common. People that are engaging in this type of farming are usually from the north. It is called reedy in the north, but it is very valuable. Sesame seed. You can see it, you can identify if you are used to burgers. They normally sprinkle them on top of burgers. So sesame seed is very, very profitable. I've mentioned 3 now: pepper, are you with me? Tomatoes, sesame seeds. Yeah, there is corn. Corn is very profitable. Corn is very profitable. So I've mentioned pepper, I've mentioned tomato, I've mentioned sesame seed, I've mentioned corn. There is ginger. Ginger is very profitable, my brothers and sisters. Ginger is very profitable. Then there is cucumber. Cucumber is profitable as well. You can see I've given you various options to choose from. So while you are thinking about going into an agri-business, a short-term, you are planning on a short-term strategy, I've given you profitable ones for you to consider. I've given you pepper, tomatoes, sesame seed, corn, ginger, cucumber, and watermelon. These are short-term crops that are very profitable. Now fast forward, let's go to long-term crops. For long-term crops, profitable long-term crops, we are looking at ogbono. Ogbono is very profitable. See, a tree of ogbono can give you close to ₦1 million. That is, see, a tree of ogbono can give you close to ₦1 million. It's no small thing, but it takes a lot of time, you see. I think it takes between 7 to 12 years for full maturity. And there are hybrid varieties that take shorter time, but then ogbono is very profitable. So if you are looking at a long-term investment into agriculture, go for 3 crops. Ogbono is very profitable. Ogbono, there is bitter kola, also bitter kola. Most of us consuming bitter kola on a regular basis. Our elders in the village, they're consuming bitter kola, but they don't know the value of bitter kola. Bitter kola is very valuable because people in the medical space, they use it for, the pharmaceutical products. Ogbono, I've mentioned bitter kola, I've mentioned ogbono. Another that is very profitable is cashew. Cashew is very profitable. Cashew is profitable. So while you are considering a long-term investment in agriculture, I've mentioned ogbono, mentioned bitter kola, now I'm mentioning cashew. Another very important long-term tree crop that is profitable is cocoa. This one is very familiar. We all know that cocoa is profitable because they use it for chocolate and all of those things. Cocoa is very profitable. So if you have a farm that you are planting cocoa, my brothers and sisters, you are going to make serious money within a period of time. Once it has matured, you make serious money from it. I've mentioned bitter kola, I've mentioned ogbono, I've mentioned cashew, I've mentioned cocoa. I'm going to mention shell nuts. This one is still rare, but we use the product a lot. We all know shell butter, right? It is gotten from shell nuts. Shell nuts is a very profitable tree crop. It takes its time anyway, but then when the profits start coming in, my brothers and sisters, you see, you have already, just go and sit down. Just be waiting for your money to come. You understand? Another very profitable tree crop is oil palm. Yeah, this one is very profitable as well. Oil palm. Palm oil, of course. Oil palm is very profitable. The product we can use the oil palm that we are used to. Also, the palm fronts are still very profitable. So you get the oil palm is producing, the palm fruit is also producing. So that is the power of the oil palm tree. It is very profitable. Now we are going into mid-term crops. Mid-term crops, we have the likes of jute. The name jute it sounds very strange, but we are common to it. Nigerians, we are very common to it. Is what we know as ewedu leaf. It is called jute. They use it for bags. They use it for furnitures. Jute is very, very profitable. Jute is profitable. Another very profitable mid-term crop is grape. Grape is very profitable. Grape is so profitable. If you have a farm that you're planting grape, my brother, grape is very, very profitable. Another short-term crop is, another mid-term crop is plantain. Plantain is very profitable as well. Plantain is very profitable, and plantain, the good thing with plantain is same as every other tree crop is, you plant, it keeps giving birth to more and more suckers that will be turning themselves to plantains. You get? So it is very profitable. Plantain is very profitable. So I've mentioned jute, I've mentioned grape, I've mentioned plantain. Right? Is there anyone I'm missing? You can add that. So that is it for today's episode. Thank you for staying. I hope you find value. Until next time, stay blessed.